Hey, what's up guys? This is Aaron from Clever Programmer, and today I just want to talk about a cute little function in Python called zip. So this isn't the kind of zip that you would see when you are zipping or unzipping a file in Python, but it's actually a function that you have in the language that allows you to glue things together to make things easier to deal with. That might have made no sense, but I'm about to explain it in code right now, so let's get right into it. Alright, so go to REPL IT, REPL it as usual. I'll create a new REPL here. Go down to Python, wherever it happens to be in the list, create REPL, and alright, we are ready to go. So zip, I might give a little bit of an explanation before I start actually. So zip, what it does is it will take any iterables in Python. So an iterable is just something you can iterate over in a for loop. That be a list, a tuple. I believe you can iterate over a dictionary. You just can't go in any specific order. It's just gonna iterate in any random order. And other things like that, like iterables are things you can go over. But if you have an iterable, then you can actually map, I might be wrong there, an iterable. I think it has to be, I know for sure for lists and tuples, if it's in order, then what it does is it takes corresponding elements and it will glue them together. So the first element from two lists, it'll put those together into a 2-element tuple and put that into the first element of one list. And then so on, it'll take the second element of both lists and then stick them in a 2-element tuple and put that in the second element of the list. And it'll just keep doing that until everything has been paired up. Or even if you have 3 lists, then it'll keep doing that until everything's tripled up. It might be easier to understand if it's in code, but that's the best I could do verbally. Let's just get right into it. So if we have a list 1 here, which is just going to have very simple numbers like this. List, oh, I forgot the equal sign. That's better. Looking nice and clean. And then let's just do something like this. Put 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Cool. So now we have our 2 lists. Now, as you can see, both of these lists are the same length, which is important, not required, but it makes things easier. Or cleaner, I should say. It makes things cleaner when you're using zip. It's not required, but it makes things definitely cleaner. So we'll start with this example. If we have list 1 and list 2, then I'm just going to call this final list. We are going to make a new list here called zipped. And all it's going to do is it's going to call the function zip, which is literally just zip, just like that, zip. And then all you need to do is just put in the 2 lists in here, just like that. So this will actually work in Python 2. This is something I came across. I didn't realize that it didn't work in Python 3. This will work in Python 2, but in Python 3, you actually need to cast this to a list. So before I run this, just be aware that there's a little change here. Whenever you're calling zip, sometimes if you want to print it out, you need to cast it to a list first before you print it out. So zipped now is a list, but we zip together list 1 and list 2. So remember, this is list 1 here, the numbers 1 through 5, integers 1 through 5, and list 2 is these 5 strings 1 through 5. When I run it, when you see it, you'll understand exactly what it's doing. Oh, stupid me, I didn't put in the print statement. Print zipped. Now let's run it. So as you can see here, what happened is it took the corresponding elements of each list and it stuck them in pairs and then put each of these pairs in its own list. So this list itself is of length 5, just like the original 2 lists, but each element is actually corresponding elements from the other 2 lists. Pretty cool, right? One thing I want to point out is that if the lists are not the same length, so let's add a 6 to this list and then try it again, then this 6 seems to be ignored. So what's going on there? Actually, what's going on there is Python will always truncate. Truncate is just a fancy word we use in the programming community to say cut off, just ignore. You truncate it off like you're cutting a tree trunk. You know what I mean? Just chop it off like a finger. If it's there, then it'll just truncate anything that is excessive. So the shorter list will take precedence. So the 6 is ignored. But if this was 5 and then we say we added an element here and we put 6 here, then this 6 here in the second list will actually be truncated, will be cut off of your finger. As you can see, it's ignored both times. The 6 number pops up. But then, of course, as you guys have probably guessed and expected, if I put in a 6, then voila, it pops up there. Same thing goes if there's 3 lists. If you actually have a third list here, and then you have some other things, and these become tuples of length 3, then whichever one of the 3 is shortest, that will be the one of what determines this final list. Okay? So that's how that works when you have different length lists. But we're just going to stick to same length list because it's just a little bit easier to understand. I'm going to go back to 5 because I don't want these going off the screen like they are right now. I want to fit everything here so you guys can see everything nice and clearly, because when people don't do that, it pisses me off. Continuing on, I already showed you guys how to zip stuff together. That is very handy. Now, another thing you can do is actually unzip things. So, okay, let's say we went from these 2 lists, these 2 long lists, to one long list of little pairs, which is another way you can think about it. You're going from 2 long lists to one long list of little pairs, or 3 long lists to one long list of little trios, and so on and so forth. But if you want to go in the opposite direction, you want to go from one long list of little pairs or little trios and then to go back to 2 long lists or 3 long lists, then that's called unzipping. But there isn't a function called unzipped in Python. Actually, what you do is you still use the zip function, but you use a little special character before the argument you give to the function to actually reverse the order of the zip. So you're zipping and unzipping with this tiny little star asterisk. I'll show you that now. So we have this zipped variable here, zipped, and it is a list. It has to be a list, I realized. In Python 3, you have to make it a list for it to work. There are some weird changes from Python 2 to Python 3, but in Python 3, you need to make sure it's a list to be able to unzip it. So the way you can unzip it is, I'm just going to name it unzipped to be very clear. This is called self-documenting code, by the way. I may have not mentioned it before, but self-documenting code is just using function names and variable names that explain themselves. So actually using I in a for loop for I in range 10 or something, it's usually not that good. You want to not use I and use something else. And it's just better to be descriptive. This list is going to be an unzipped list, just the same way that this list became a zipped list. So unzipped is just going to be this zipped list, but unzipped. So literally all we do is just, we're going to have to, because of Python 3, you got to put the list in there again. That looked like a nipple. Inappropriate. Sorry if you're under an appropriate age. We're going to just call zip again here. And then originally you might think, okay, like wouldn't it just be like unzip and then you stick zipped in here and it's nice and done? But no, it's actually the same function, zip. But all you do is before this thing I mentioned earlier, you put an asterisk, a little star, just like that. Almost C style, like dereferencing a pointer, if you know what the heck that means. If you do, you're cool. If not, you can be cool. I'm pretty sure we'll get you there. We'll get you there at some point. Just stick a little star there in front of the zipped list here, and this will actually unzip this list and give us from this output, bring us back to this output. So let's just see what the heck happens. First, let's check if there's any errors. No errors, and then print this out just like I printed the zipped, like that, and click run, and magic. You see, I went from this, we went from 2 separate lists here, okay, 2 separate lists, and then we got this and zipped it together to get one long list of little pairs, and then we went from this long list of little pairs back to 2 separate lists, or actually tuples in this case. I mean, you can cast them to other things if you like, but in this case they were put in tuples, one list of 2 long tuples, which is equivalent to these 2 original lists. So that's basically what the zip and inverse of zip, the inverse functionality of zip can do. So it's like a dual function. You can kind of do 2 things with it. It's 2 functions in one. Kind of cool. You can do that with zipped. But another thing that I want to mention is the primary time zip is actually used. So I noticed that whenever I'm using the zip function, most often it's to be able to get enough lists or variables in a scope. If that made sense to you, good. If not, let me explain. If you are inside of an if statement or inside of a for loop, you know that the variables you have inside there are actually local to that little indented area. If you have a chunk of code and it's indented out, or like if you're in Java or C++ or something, you have brackets, anything in that chunk of code, it's like one unified whole. All the code in there can share all the variables and anything outside of it. But if you had a variable inside the if statement or the for loop, and then you tried to read into the if statement or into the for loop, you wouldn't actually be able to read those variables. A little bit tricky to understand, but it makes sense if you've been coding long enough. It makes sense on a technological level. So it's just something you have to accept. You don't really have to understand why it works, but just understand how it works. Understanding why is very fascinating. You can go into that if you want at some future point. There's a lot of resources. Just Google it. It's pretty cool. But going back to scope, using zip is very handy if you want to get a bunch of things into a different scope. Let's see. So let's just try to have a for loop. So let's say I have these two lists up here, and then I want to actually iterate over both of these lists within the for loop. So like, how would you do that besides like having an ugly for I in range 5, and then indexing list 1 at I and indexing list 2 at I? Actually, this might not even be a scope thing. I might have had a little brain fart there, but that scope thing is still a very relevant piece of information to programming in general, so definitely hold on to that, but I might have fussed up there a little bit. You actually don't need that because you're just trying to read here, but if you actually want to get multiple things into a scope without avoiding this gross syntax here, you can actually use the zip function instead. So instead of having for I in range and having this index, a very C-style kind of way of doing it, we can get rid of this crap, okay, and do it the Python way, which is the arguably cooler way. So you can just say for list 1, list 2 in, there we go, yeah, in zip. Actually, we shouldn't call this that. Let's call it L1 and L2, okay? So this is actually a tuple. Let me put it in parentheses just to be clear, because it'll make more sense. So this is actually a two-part tuple. If you don't know what this is, look it up. It's a way to unpack tuples automatically. Just Google that and then see what that means in Python. It's kind of a cool little thing to save space. You can do multiple things on one line. So we're just going to zip together these two lists. And what happens here is now in this loop, I now have access to whatever iteration I'm on. I have access to both this variable and this variable, or this element and this element at the same time by using L1 and L2. So let's just do that. So I'm going to print L1 and I'm going to print L2 just like that and print it. And as you can see, each iteration, it actually prints 1 and then 1. The number 1 and then the string 1, the number 2 and then the string 2 in each iteration. So this is the first iteration, this is the second iteration, the third iteration, fourth iteration, so on and so forth, however many times you want to go. But the point I'm trying to make here is you can actually zip together a bunch of different lists and have access to all of those corresponding elements in each list within the for loop. So let's say I had 20 lists and I wanted to zip all 20 together, and then I had a tuple of length 20. I could actually use all 20 of those variables in the for loop to actually do interesting calculations and whatnot. Very cool, very handy. So now I want to go through an actual example besides this very simplistic one. So let's just delete this. I have a nice little example printed out for you guys, and it's going to be called sentences. We are going to be creating sentences from different lists. I forgot to actually. Okay, so we're going to be creating sentences from different lists. So items, what did I put here? Items equals apple, banana, and orange. And then also, this is a little shopping cart example. It's coming back to me now. I should have looked at this before I started the video. That is shame on me. Oops. But now I have items. So we're going to have different items. We're going to have different counts. And then we're going to have different prices. So you kind of see how these different elements in each list is going to correspond. So if you bought 3 apples, if you bought an apple, you bought 3 of them. And then the price was, I don't know, 99 cents. And then bananas are 25 cents. And then oranges are 50 cents. Something like that, okay? This is the three corresponding lists. Now we want to be able to access this first element, all at the same time in the same iteration of a for loop. So we can construct a sentence. The sentences I'm going to try to create are, I bought 3 apples at 99 cents, and I bought 6 bananas at 25 cents, and so on. That's kind of the idea that I want to implement here. So let's start the for loop up. So it's going to be, remember, you can do that cool little tuple unpacking thing. I'm going to have item, I'm going to have count, and I'm going to have price. So that's how I access these. So this is an item in the items list, so that's going to be put in here. This is a count in the counts list, so that's going to be put in here. And this is a price. This floating point number is going to be the price in this prices list that's going to be stuck in here. Okay, so this is going to be apple, this is going to be 3, and this is going to be 99 cents in the first iteration. And then in the second and third iteration, it'll be the same thing for banana and orange. Okay, so of course we're going to have to zip these 3 together. So items, counts, prices. I forgot to mention, if you are doing this cool little trick with zip here, you might have already noticed that. You might have been objecting earlier, like, what the heck, Aaron? You didn't cast it to a list. I thought you said in Python 3 you always have to cast it to a list. That is only if you're trying to print it. The thing is, this zip object that is returned from this function can actually be put in this for loop like this, and you do not need to cast it to a list because we're not actually printing this zip function return data. So you can just leave it like that, just leave it as zip, and it'll actually just automatically zip it together and automatically pick out this nice unpacked triple tuple for you. So that's all clean. That is all done in one line, and now we have access to these 3 variables in each iteration. These 3, then those 3, then those 3. I might have screwed that up again, but you guys are probably getting used to me screwing up, I hope, if you're still there. So what I want to do here is actually create some sentences. So the sentence I wanted to create was sentences dot append. So we're gonna have to add to the sentences list, of course. Or actually, let's make this a little bit cleaner. Let's put sentence, making changes on the fly here. So sentence is going to be, we're just gonna glue some strings together. I bought space count space, or a plus, space, I bought count space item, item, and then add there. If you don't know what's happening here, just wait till I'm done coding this line and I'll explain it real quick. If you do know what's going on, then just put it on 2 times and zip through this real quick. There we go. I always get confused when I'm concatenating these strings like this. It's so easy to make an error. I think I did this right though. So what's happening here is you can add strings together, right? And when you add 2 strings, then they are just added together into one big string. So what this should output is I bought, for the first iteration, it should be I bought 3 space apples, because I added this S here, at space 99 cents. Actually, let's go like that. Cents each. And don't forget the space there. Okay? So that's what's happening there. I'm constructing this string here, and then I want to append this sentence to the list. Okay, that's what's going on. However, when we get these 3 elements here, this is still a string, this is still an integer, and this is still a floating point, a decimal point number. Okay, so what we actually have to do is convert all these to strings by casting them. So we could just go like this, stick it in like that, which is what you could do on all 3, but I might do it like this because it just seems a little bit less messy. I think that was a weird contradiction there. A lot more less messy. but I'm pretty sure you guys got the point. We are going to do this. This is another little cool thing you can do with unpacking. So as you can see, these corresponding elements here are all going to be casted and then put into new names, or the same names, but they're just going to be overwritten. So pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm taking item count and price, these three, and then I want to make them all strings, so I just stick them in here, and now item count and price are all strings. Technically, I don't have to make this item a string because it's already a string, but just to keep it consistent and make it easier on the eyes, I'm going to leave it like this. So let's see what happens when I print out sentences now, because we went through it, we zipped all these three things together, we converted all the items to strings and everything, we constructed a sentence using one little element from each of these lists, and then we stuck one of the sentences in the sentence list, and we did that 3 times, so there should be 3 sentences in this list that we are about to print out. Let's print it out right now. Go over here so you can see it, and see what happens. Perfect. Oh, I dragged this over the perfect amount. Look at that. Yeah, things work out sometimes, don't they? Right, Mom? So, as you can see, we have 3 sentences here. It says, I bought 3 apples at 99 cents each. I bought 6 bananas at 25 cents each. And I bought 4 oranges at 50 cents each, or 0.5 cents each. I guess that's screwed up. This is probably not right, but I mean, the code worked the way it was supposed to. I'm pretty sure you guys get the idea. If you want to be able to zip together a bunch of things into a for loop or an if statement, or I'm not sure if you can into an if statement, I have to think about it, but definitely for a for loop. I use it a lot for for loops, zipping things together into for loops. This is a very, very handy function. Don't forget about the unzip thing, the little star thing you can put before if you ever need to do that. You can actually get really crafty with these, zipping a bunch of big tuple lists together, and when you're doing data analysis, very, very useful. But that pretty much wraps up the zipped function there. One of my favorite functions in Python for sure, just because it makes everything so nice and clean. But this is very useful for, like I said, going over large data, doing data analysis and whatnot, those kind of statistics things. And that actually ties us into something I want to talk about. We actually have a brand new course coming out in the next month or two called How to Automate Stuff with Python. That is going to be going over similar things to this, how to handle and analyze large amounts of texts, large amount of files, and all those kind of things, and dealing with like really large big data arrays and data sets and graphs and all that good technical nerdy crap. I guess you could say. Some people like it, some people don't. I think it's great. But yeah, we have that course coming out called How to Automate Stuff with Python, which is going to be really cool. So stay tuned. I'm going to have a bunch of videos coming out that are somewhat related to it. Some might not be, but some will be. But in that course, we'll be going to a lot of depth about all the different cool things you can do with Python regarding big data analysis, analyzing data sets, doing web scraping, like those kind of things. It's very, very cool. Even image manipulation. But yeah, just a bunch of cool stuff that we're gonna be going over. I can't remember all of it just because there's so much, but those are just a few things that came to the top of my mind. But yeah, definitely stay tuned, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. That is the end of this long, drawn out video. As usual, that's my signature. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Good. Bye.
Going all day, man, going all day, man, going all day, man, going all day, man, I've been going way too damn long.